Welcome to the Marketing Millennials, the No BS Marketing Podcast. I'm Daniel Murray, and join me for unfiltered conversations with the brains behind marketing's coolest companies. The one request I tell our guests, stories or it didn't happen. Get ready to turn the fuck up.
If what you're working on never works out, just take the exact same idea and apply it to this regulated industry. We're just far behind. This seems like something that might be normal in other industries, but for us, it's brand new. And taking that same mentality to B2B SaaS, you're looking at what's happening in the B2C realm. You're looking at what's happening within modern media, and you're applying it back into software. And so it's just a reapplication of existing ideas.
All right, so if you're a fan of the show, you probably know what a huge fan I am of using webinars for community building. And one of the top questions I get asked from marketers is what platforms they should use to host their webinars. That's where Wistia comes in. Wistia automatically creates a customizable registration page for every one of your webinars, so you can start generating new leads in no time. And when it's time to go live, Wistia gives you total control. You can bring panelists on and off stage with a click of a button and keep your audience engaged with Wistia's live chat, polls, and Q&A. Plus, performance tracking is a total breeze thanks to Wistia's easy sync with HubSpot, Adobe Marketo Engage, and Pardot. To make an awesome webinar today, visit wistia.com/live. That's wistia.com/live.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Marketing Millennials. Today, I have one of the co-founders of Lavender on the podcast, Will. What's up, Will?
Hey, Daniel. Appreciate it. Good to be here.
I want to first dig into who you are and how did you start Lavender, and then we can get into some fun stuff.
So I'm one of the co-founders at Lavender. We help sellers write emails that are objectively good. We got started off of a pivot in 2020. We were actually working on a MarTech product at the time, focused on customer segmentation. We found a lot of marketers needed assistance on the content for said segments. And so we were building some products around that. COVID kind of killed the dream there. And so we repurposed it into some one-to-one tech. And we've been off to the races ever since.
If you haven't seen Lavender's strategy, Lavender's been all over social, and especially if you're a seller or marketer, you probably have seen Lavender. I want to go into how you think about, you've been putting on community and cool events. How do you think about community for Lavender?
Yeah, I think a lot of this comes from how we got started. So Lavender, in a lot of ways, is a very social native brand. We didn't really find traction until we leaned into platforms like LinkedIn, where it was actually Nick Bennett was the first person to do a LinkedIn post about Lavender. You know Nick Bennett?
Yeah, I do know Nick.
Yeah. So Nick does a post about us, and all of a sudden we see installs go boop. And we're looking at that and we're like, not only is it boop, it's very specific to a use case, a particular persona, it's sales. And so we just decided to lean right into that. Yeah, I think the week after I started posting every weekday for the next 3 years. And so that's really where a lot of this engagement started, where it all kind of began. And so starting from a product that was servicing the individual user, we got really into the weeds with our users because we were just in the weeds on comments, in the weeds in DMs, having conversations with them, trying to figure out exactly how to best build the product for scale, what challenges people are facing, just getting into the nitty-gritty of the problems sales reps were facing back in 2020. And as a byproduct of that, we fostered a lot of this community involvement, connection with our users, that even as we've gone into having teams-oriented products and selling to organizations as opposed to individual users, one of the big reasons we're winning deals in market is because the individual users love our product so much. And so even selling top down, we create bottoms up growth wherever we're going. Your community for us it's just been baked into our ethos from the beginning, in the sense that, it's not some online forum. It's not some monthly meetup. It's meeting our users where we are with the sole purpose and focus of how can we be as helpful for them as possible.
And I think one of the things of your strategy that I want you to kind of talk through is because, like, ultimately, like, the users aren't always going to be the decision makers and who's going to buy Lavender. So how did you think about going through like the next level of, I want to capture AEs or SDRs that are going to use this product, instead of going after and talking to like their managers or like the managers on how to buy the product?
Yeah, and that's definitely true today, right? But I think the way people buy right now in particular is like, no one wants to buy something that people don't want to use, right? There's plenty of non-useful tech in a lot of companies' tech stacks. And so when we're having those conversations today, it's definitely those roots of how we got started has played a big role in our ability to win and close deals. The initial offering, we didn't have a team plan until somebody asked us for it. And only then, like, it started as like, hey, I just need to consolidate billing. We were like, cool. What else would you want as a manager for the product to do? And then we started to build those things. And then we started to roll out like more thoughtful dashboarding to assist in that. And so, the pieces have come together strictly from, demand from the users and like this community that we've fostered of folks that are using our software and loving it on a daily basis.
I want to go into like the different parts of the community strategy. So let's start with LinkedIn, and then we can go to the events next. LinkedIn. So how do you think about it? Because I see, for example, everybody, like most people on the marketing team and the founders are posting on LinkedIn on Lavender. Is it a thoughtful strategy that was panned out? How do you foster people to be posting, and how do you get that to ultimately create more and more raving fans for Lavender?
So there's a few pieces to unpack there. The original reason we started posting on LinkedIn, right, it comes back to Nick posting and seeing that uptick, and then me posting and seeing a bigger uptick. Yeah, as we were doing this, these online communities were spinning up, things like Rev Genius, Thursday night sales, where we were just like, these are the folks that we want using our product. Let's be there. Let's be with them in these like groups and like areas, and like try to get to know what they're dealing with, try to be helpful in any way possible. I think that's been one of the like core things that's been helpful in us fostering that. And so taking it from the top, right? You mentioned the founders are posting, the founders are active in these communities. That sets the stage for everybody across the company to understand that that's the expectation and that's the norm. And it's encouraged for folks to be posting actively. It's never a requirement, of course, right? But if I see somebody on my team start posting, like, I'll encourage that. I'll support that through likes and comments, but also in like one-on-one conversation, being like, hey, saw you posting more. It's awesome. You're posting where our users live, and it helps keep us top of mind, but also continues to showcase the brand, what we value, and how we want to show up in this. It's funny, we keep saying the word community, right? But like, it's really just on LinkedIn, it's where our users are. We're just coming to meet them.
And I think that's the key to community. I think people confuse that community has to be a Slack channel or something. Community is just fostering individuals to talk with each other, share common thoughts, encourage users to be in a place and showing up where they are. And it looks different for everybody. Like for you, one, it's on LinkedIn, and two, we could talk about the next like things you do for the community, which if you want to talk through what you did at SaaStr, that was like got everybody talking about like an event that would happen at SaaStr that got everybody talking, which is basically a big community play as well.
It definitely is. I mean, there's two core things that kind of speaks to. One is the community element. The other is a thing we talk about internally all the time, which is as a company, we should always be trying to find those moments where it makes the most sense to zag when other people are zigging. And this comes directly from my co-founder from the top, where it's very much so a mindset of like, yeah, if we see everybody doing the same thing, do something different. And like that feeds into like even our posting strategy, right? Like when we're posting content, the content is two core things that really haven't been done before. And it's created a lot of brand moat in a lot of ways, which is we focus on objective opinions when it comes to email, and we focus on the buyer's perspective to give that data context. Those are like two things that really haven't been brought together in a thoughtful way. But thinking about the party the event we put on at SaaStr, right? We rented out an airplane hangar. We kept the event venue secret until like the Monday prior. Yeah, we hyped it up. We did something pretty big, right? We had over, I think it was just around like 1,100 people show up to
Crazy.
an event. And, it is crazy. It was pretty wild to like put on. And I think the thing that like really blows people's mind is like, we didn't do a booth. We literally spent less money than we would on a booth by a long shot. And we were able to make more noise and more like attention in doing so. Part of that is, we're throwing an event focused on the IC, the individual person that would be using our product, as opposed to how everybody else thinks about it, which is, let's put an event on for a CRO. I want to get them at the dinner table and I want to like feed them wine and talk to them about like why they should buy my product. And I'm like, that's such a dated mindset. Like the buying committee is so much bigger these days. But the other piece being like, where's the white space on the calendar? Where are people as far as like what events are happening around it? Can we like partner with those other events to like feed into that like one space? Like one group actually helped pay for a bus from their party to our party because they were like, yeah, it's perfect like tie-in to what we're doing, and like it allows us to like add into that experience, right? And so it's, to a degree, like you see people trying to emulate some of the things that we're doing at conferences, and they're missing the mark where it's like disruptive, pattern disrupts, but not necessarily with the same positive intention of just like, how do we put on something to just like celebrate the people that celebrate us on a daily basis?
Usually when people go all out, it's just to get like attention. They don't really have a specific person in mind. Like, oh, I'm going to do this huge giveaway, or I'm going to do like this crazy thing in my booth. But it doesn't really have like a specific thing in mind. And two, one thing I think you could, I know you didn't really hit on, but like this party was like more like a night later party where like more like SDRs, BDRs, AEs would probably attend versus like a CRO is probably not going to like an airplane hangar and partying. So like it really targets the people who are, I mean, most conferences, let's be honest, people are coming and they didn't want to say it, but like a lot of them are coming for the business, but a lot of them are going to go party after and find a way to party. So
sure.
And a lot of them are AEs. So how do you think about that?
I think about that in a number of ways, right? Which is like we have, even when we're selling top down, it's like a completely cold account where we don't have seats. One of the things we do is we just try to like place our product in the hands of some key reps as we're initially doing that like break in, right? And so like top of mind awareness across these accounts is like crucial in that. I can sit at the conference and have a conversation with a CRO and like, invite them to the party and like joke that it might be past their bedtime. And they'll be like, yeah, I know all my reps are going. And you're like, perfect. That's all I need. Which is like, yeah, if they come, great. And like, I'll make a point to like see them at said event. But if they don't, like the top of mind awareness that came from getting all of the reps there still existed and still was successful.
I think also what happened was like even not only reps were talking about it, but like, I mean, I heard about it from leaders as well who said like, oh, this was a cool like event that Lavender put on for AE. So like I didn't even hear it from like an SDR or AE. I heard it from like Kyle Lacey who runs marketing
Kyle.
at
Love
Jelly.
Kyle.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's like you hear like that's what's a sign of a good event. If people are like after the event talking about the event, saying like it was a great event, like that's like the sign of like you're doing something right. If you get people to talk, share, invite
Yeah.
other people. Like that's the true sign of a good event.
I do think in a lot of ways we have an unfair advantage here, and that my co-founder, his background when he was in college, he ran like an events business where he was like doing promotions and like, yeah, helping DJs set up events and stuff. And so like this stuff comes very naturally to him. And then like our team, and this comes for a lot of teams, right? Where it's just like you put like a core objective in front of their head of like, yeah, here's the standard that we expect to meet. And like, let's just go get it done. And like we have engineers like helping put the event together. We've got folks in CS and marketing making sure everybody gets registered and like making sure the registration's checked at the door. Like we've got folks like doing a beer run because like, you know, we had more people show up than we honestly expected, right? And it's like the whole team comes together and helps make sure these events go off without a hitch. It's it's a bit of I think of it as like an unfair advantage and that like how tight knit we are in making sure these things go off without a hitch.
I wouldn't even like call it an unfair advantage. I would call it playing to your strength. And that's like the key to community too, is like community one, do I have the resources to execute like that community play? One, you have the resources to post on LinkedIn every day, which is good for you. You have someone on your team who's really great at events that now can put on events. It's like a resource that you can execute it at A+. So you're just doing things that you're executing at A+s on places where luckily they're places where your salespeople hang out. So I think that's like the key to community too, is having great resources that can execute in places where your audience hangs out.
Yeah, and to that point on like playing the strengths, right? It like, you know, our team loves to create some good content, right? I'm not sure if you saw Will Aikens' Impractical Jokers video, right? It's like we're using almost like, yeah, the tent pole of like, here's when we're having this event, right? And it's like things can spring off of that where it's like Sam, our SDR, is in a conversation with a leader and it's just like, it's not like necessarily facilitating in the right direction for sales. But you can immediately pivot back to, okay, cool. Like, hey, we're having this like thing. It's like, it becomes nurture. Or like our marketing team inviting people to the event as marketing content. Like those are all things that kind of fit into these core strengths of like how we sell, how we operate. And it's like, yeah, not everybody's ready to buy right away. And so like we know to like soften the approach and like move people through of just like knowing who we are and where we're going, right? Or, you know, we know we need to go create content. So why don't we use this other piece to work around that?
I love hosting webinars. Seriously, they're one of the best marketing tools to take advantage of. Level up your marketing game with Wistia's all-in-one webinar platform. Whether you've got tons of experience hosting webinars or none at all, Wistia makes it easy to create, host, market, and analyze your webinars. It's seriously foolproof. Go to wistia.com/live to start generating and nurturing leads with webinars. That's wistia.com/live.
I think one thing also that you could talk to a little bit is like you talked about the Impractical Joker one, but like you using like with your content as well, you're taking inspiration from things that people understand in general culture, like ESPN, Impractical Jokers, and you're tying it to like your content, which that's what original ideas are to me. It's taking a piece of content and tying it to another piece of content and making a new idea. Like that's just basically what original ideas are. But you have to be in culture to understand that that's how you should be doing it. And you have to deeply understand your expertise to connect the dots.
Yeah. And I don't know where the Impractical Jokers stemmed from. I don't know if it was Todd or Aiken, because those two are both just incredibly creative. I know Todd, from a like company culture standpoint, has been incredibly creative when it comes to thinking through those things, where like he thinks through these lens of like, okay, that's familiar, and like it's a format. Like these shows have created these formats, right? Because they work. It's not because they're like you'll notice like some of these trends like repeat and repeat. And so Todd's brilliant to notice and pick up on those things and be like, how do we repurpose that same core mindset and put that into a type of show, a thing that we're doing?
Also, I think if you go even deeper into that, is a lot of AEs are sports fans. So like if you like could tie into like an interest of your target audience and you tie into like what they're doing, it becomes like a good companion to each other to be able to basically, now I could put out something that's based on someone's interest and valuable content. And then now it's a home run hitting piece of content.
Oh yeah. We've got a few like show ideas that we've talked through where some of it really comes down to just like some of it's like just repurposing Netflix shows.
I mean, that's the way. I mean, sometimes you like I always say, like reinventing the wheel is just like innovating on the existing wheel that exists. So like sometimes, especially you're still in like startup mode, even like startup growth mode, you can't always like think of original ideas all the time. So what can you do to take that already exists and make it unique to you and different to you? Like you're just copying a format. You're not copying what they're talking about, like the voices in there. You're just trying to make something relatable and relevant.
It reminds me of some advice I got early on in my entrepreneurial career, which was from a healthcare exec, where they were talking to me and they were like, listen, like if what you're working on never works out, like just take the exact same idea and apply it to this regulated industry. And he was like laughing because he's like, we're just far behind. Like this seems like something that like might be normal in other industries, but like for us, it's like brand new. And taking that same mentality to B2B SaaS, you're looking at what's happening in the B2C realm. You're looking at what's happening within modern like media, and you're applying it back into software. And so it's just a reapplication of existing ideas that are happening from a more progressive, an area where it's having better effect. And so you're just reapplying the same lessons into a new space where they haven't been applied yet.
We're now in a stage in software where most software products are commodities that need to have a brand attached. I mean, they might have like something X better, or like they might do something way better than the other, but most of them, there's so much competitive. The landscape is getting greater and greater for tools that people need to buy. So how can you stand out, be different, be relevant to your audience?
There's a great piece of research out of UCLA where they were looking at two main factors and like how it contributed to overall choice. And one was top of mind awareness, and the other was true preference. And so the case study went through like two core like categories, one being fast food, the other one like shoes, right? And so like if I ask you like what's the first shoe brand that comes to mind?
You're asking me?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, for me it's Nike, but
right,
because I'm wearing it right now.
And if I asked you what shoe you prefer,
it's Nike too, because
right. And so what you see actually in like behavior and choice is Nike performs like leaps and bounds, like beyond everybody else. Now there's things that aren't necessarily top of mind. The companies like Brooks, for example, there might be a group of people that have pure preference towards them, but since they don't have that top of mind awareness, they don't have the market dominance. The example with fast food brings it even more to life, which is the first fast food comes to mind is typically McDonald's. And then you ask people what their preference is, and it's typically like a Chick-fil-A. And what you find is those two from like gross volume of sales are like top of the list. And it's like Chick-fil-A is not always top of mind and McDonald's is not always preferred, but it's truly like a 50-50 on the matrix of like what ends up being the overall choice.
But it also shows like, I mean, Nike isn't always the best shoe. I could think of like 4 shoes that are as great as Nike, but
totally.
People want to show off, like it's a community for them. Like if someone else is wearing Nikes, you're like, oh, we're in like that Nike community where like we know each other. Like it's a community for them if you're wearing Nikes.
And it's funny, like different things, different tactics, different strategies are going to bring people into that community more effectively than others, right? So for me, it was the Phil Knight like book Shoe Dog. Like I wasn't like a Nike diehard, and then I read that book and I was like, damn, Nikes are cool. It's just because it connected with me on a founder level. Versus somebody else, it might be like an influencer or like it's just a cool looking shoe that they released that like snags somebody's attention.
Yeah, it's crazy because the way you say it like that. I mean, I went off Nike for a little bit, but now I've just got into tennis and I've seen like all the tennis players and they're actually winning the market too, because like I was looking at OnCloud because like now they're like in tennis for me, it's just OnCloud and Nike because I just see those two people.
Yeah, you see Roger Federer and then Serena,
and
right?
Shelton. And then I see Nike shoes, but I was going to get OnClouds, but they didn't have my size. So I was like, okay, most other people are wearing Nike. So that's why I'm going to get these tennis shoes because most other people are wearing Nike. It's just top of mind. I could have, there's probably 10 other best tennis shoes I could have gone with, but the top athletes are wearing this. So why should I not wear it?
There's a sales community that spun up. I don't even know if it's still around, but I love the way they produce stuff because we were talking about examples of where people have taken B2C concepts and brought them into B2B. Whiskey Wednesday on the sales community front. Let's just assume it's still there. I think it is. The way they run the show was almost like a late night with, Johnny Carlson, like type vibe of like, they've got really fun, like graphics that float in, music, interesting, like compelling interruptions that are going on. Like somebody calls in and like complains about spam callers and like, it's like funny little like quirky moments that you would see on a late night show, but like nobody's thought to do that within a sales community, right? Like sales community to date has been like, yeah, let's have a Zoom meeting and let's talk about like strategy, as opposed to like how do we entertain people, which is, it's cool that ideas come into the world of B2B.
Most people right now are overwhelmed with all these Zoom stuff and events and content, and you have to give them a reason to show up and consume, give them a reason to attend your event. And it can't just be that my content is good. It has to be like something next level where it's the most entertaining show that everybody's talking about.
Yeah.
It's the party that someone can't get into. It's the talk of it's this, there's a celebrity guest there. Like you have to go more all. It doesn't have to be to the celebrity guest, but it has to be something that you can't get anywhere else. Otherwise you just becoming, again, a commodity with content now too, because you can get that content somewhere else.
Yeah. As soon as we see folks adopt something that we're doing, it's like, okay, well, we got to do something different now. That's just like mentality that we baked into the organization of like, okay, is it still working? Yes or no? Okay, it's still working. Maybe we should keep doing it. But if we're starting to see results from whatever said thing is lag, it's like, okay, let's start thinking about what's different and like what we could be doing differently.
I think that's a great mentality too. I think one, like continue the stuff that's still working, but there's going to be an end date if more and more people start copying. But also I think there's something to say about being the first mover in that type of content, because I even see it with like the Marketing Millennials. Like I see tons of other meme marketing pages get spin up, but like when you think of meme marketing, like meme company pages, like they think Marketing Millennials, even though there's like probably now I see 100 now other meme but like I was like Marketing Millennials it was an original idea. I looked at other meme pages and just brought it to marketing, but I was the first one to start doing it and grew it bigger. Now like the other ones are like might get mentioned, but when the connection between that type of content and Marketing Millennials are synonymous now. So
yeah, what's the other one that comes to mind is the Scott Brinker always reposts this stuff. It's the Marketunist, or
oh yeah,
you might argue he's the original.
Tom
Fishburne.
Yeah, Fishburne.
Yeah. But to your point, right? It's because you were first, because you did it first. When other people do it, like the meme page, for example, people immediately associate it back to you, not necessarily them as a byproduct. It actually,
they're like, oh, they see a meme and they'd be like, oh, the Marketing Millennials, even if it wasn't Marketing Millennials meme. So it's hilarious.
Yeah, it's exactly right. Which is like it reinforces some of that first mover advantage.
Also, I've changed like the like you said, I've changed the way I've done things over time. I went from like tweets to like images to this, but like I still like kept the consistency of like having things that are first mover. But when people started like doing more tweets on the feed, I was like, okay, this is getting kind of overplayed by everybody. It's still a good strategy, but I'll just start adding in memes now because the strategy is kind of getting overplayed a little bit. It still works, but I want to separate myself with another piece of content.
Copy AI in like the early days, one of the reasons Twitter became such an effective platform for them was they leaned into video before other people were doing video on LinkedIn or on Twitter or X now, right? But like, it's just like, how do you stand out in that platform? It's just like, okay, well, let's just use a content format that people aren't using. It's very simple stuff that like is intuitive once you hear it, right? Which is like, okay, nobody's posting memes. I will post memes, right? It's finding that white space and capitalizing on it.
Yeah, like Gong using data and content. Like it wasn't like a revolutionary idea, but it got separated them because they just were like, oh, I'll just share cool data points about content. And
totally.
Totally. Yeah, I also want to go into a question I ask everybody on this podcast is, what is a marketing hill you would die on?
Yeah, and I'm similar between I'll die on the hill of like gated content is an old school methodology, and like it's not necessarily gated. Yeah, I just hate gated content. It's just like the most annoying thing to me when you're introducing some like friction point to me getting content, which is like the whole, I feel like there's like a core rule of the internet, which is like content will find a way to be distributed as frictionless as possible. And as a byproduct, like when you gate things, you are trying to stand in the way of that like law. And so what ends up happening in reality is like either people don't read it, which is bad overall. Like, okay, you've sacrificed your idea getting shared for some benefit for you as opposed to the benefit for the user. And the other piece is like it just introduces a false belief that you're tracking correctly when in reality, one person goes and downloads it and then shares it with 10 others. And you're like, oh, like I don't actually have attribution for that moment. So those are like, I'm a big anti-gated content person. I think it gives people a false sense of comfort.
For me, my opinions on gated content go like zigzag because I think like for gated content to me, I hate it in like 98% of the scenarios. But I do think if that content that you're gating is 10x like the content out there and you actually put a lot of time in it and you're trying to
validate the reason you're doing said content in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, or you're trying to, or the motive is like, hey, this is a way to like get on the email list, then you're going to receive a newsletter plus like this piece of cool content. Like it's like a plus something like two. I don't really, I mean, I hate getting content in general, but I've seen people do it very well. But the way it doesn't succeed is like probably only 5% of people read the gated content that's sent to them. If you even look at like the ones that the old school tactics of I'll email you, the open rates of those emails are like 40%. And then like the clicks are like less. And then you only got like 3% of people that gave you your email reading that said content that you wanted to.
Which, to that point, right, you're creating like friction. You got their email now, great, but they never actually heard the idea that's going to influence the way they think, which is going to get them to go eventually be of the mindset to be ready to buy your product.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm more in the sense like if it's maybe a free tool that they keep using, like maybe get them an email, like something that they
I'm at an unfair advantage in the sense that we've got a freemium product. So like
exactly, and you got it.
We've got some things that make some of these feelings unique to us. So I understand why other companies are approaching it differently.
The next question, it's not really a question, but where could people find you and what Lavender's doing and all that good stuff?
The easiest way to find me is LinkedIn. I post there Monday through Friday. I've been doing it for the past 3+ years now. Yeah, I'm getting a lot more active on Twitter. But across the board, I try to be fairly active in all my inboxes across all of them. Obviously, yeah, that's easier said than done. It used to be a lot easier than it is these days. But yeah, I would say across socials is the easiest way to get a hold of me.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Also, you guys have a cool content thing that you launched, Lavender Land. So if people want sales content, they can go chill there or go look what they're doing. It's cool stuff. It's a good way to run B2B content marketing and community. So they're a good example of that. So thank you for joining. It's been great.
Well, and appreciate the praise, man. It means a lot coming from you. Yeah, the Lavender Land it's been in the works for a long time. So it's a cool sort of like video focused content, like series oriented place to go to just like one, be entertained, but two, be educated in the process. Back to all these things, right? It's like, how do we try things that are different and stand out?
Well, you definitely are standing out, but thank you so much for coming on and I appreciate it.
Yeah. Hey, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much for listening. Tune in next week to hear more great insights from marketing's coolest operators. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the Marketing Millennials podcast and giving it a 5-star rating. It helps bring more marketers into our community.